It's very clear that this was a professional assassination, because the way an individual came into profile in the CCTV pictures that we've seen, having let his victim walk past him and then pull a gun out with a rather large silencer on it and fire a number of rounds. We saw the gun jamming, and he cleared the jam very professionally, killing his victim as he wanted to do, and then moved off, but in a way that he hid his identity. He had clearly checked the area out for where the CCTV coverage was beforehand. What's interesting is there are reports to say that there are words on some of the shell cartridges that have been found by the police. So there's a clear message being sent. There's an awful lot more detail to this. And he'll have checked the CCTV and other surveillance along the routes into where he came from and then where he left. Because if he suddenly goes somewhere and takes his hood off and mask off, and that can be seen, it would give his identity away. So this was very professionally put together. The individual was aware of how to handle a weapon. Now, in the United States, that's not unusual because weapons are easily accessible, but this was someone who knew what he was doing, and in the nerves of the moment and using a weapon with a silencer. First round hit his victim in the calf, second round hit him in the chest, which is where you'd be aiming for. How this is planned, I think if you look at the CCTV coverage, you look at the lack of surveillance pictures that have been released of the individual, there may be more that the police and the FBI have got, but it was clearly well planned. It was well planned because we've got an assassin who's got a weapon with a silencer. The shell cartridge has been pre-marked with words to send a message, so that's been put in there. They'll have worked out where the victim was coming from and the route the victim will have taken to get to the conference that he was going to. And in doing that, we'll have done a survey to try and identify where the CCTV coverage was in that area, which is why we see a side profile and a rear profile of the assassin as he's taking his shots against the victim. But also before that, where the assassin was in a coffee shop and elsewhere, you've only got pictures that show his eyes and everything else. Now that is significant. That's a significant piece of evidence that the FBI will be able to exploit. And it shows that the individual isn't completely surveillance aware, but he was doing as much as he can to hide his identity. What the NYPD and the FBI will be doing is they'll be carrying out as much forensic analysis on the bullets in the victim's body, of the cartridges that they found. They'll be taking as many eyewitness statements as they possibly can to try and identify the route that the assassin has taken in, and then follow that back through CCTV to go back through as much CCTV as possible to see if they can get clearer pictures. Because at some stage he's put his mask up, he's put his hood up. At some stage he will have checked his weapon to put the silencer on it, and is trying to identify that. But also what they'll do is they'll look back over CCTV over the past few days, because at some stage he will have probably gone and had a good reconnaissance of the area to make sure he knew where the CCTV cameras were, so that he knew where to stand, how to approach, so that there wasn't an obvious shot of him on camera as he was carrying out the assassination. Or the shot that we did see was him from behind, and it wouldn't give anything that would make him easily identifiable. What a lot of criminals don't realize is there's an awful lot more to just seeing your face that can identify you. And the Metropolitan Police actually lead in many of the techniques that are used in identifying people from that perspective. The manhunt will be massive at the moment. He'll go to ground, and he'll either go to ground by running away somewhere and just staying away from the investigation until it starts to go cold, or go to ground fairly close to where things have happened. New York is a huge city. It's not difficult for an individual to hide in there, and this is why FBI and New York police will be looking for evidence as quickly as possible, so that they can put an identity on the individual and then try and track where their movements have been. I think from the pictures that we've seen at the moment, there's sufficient for them to try and check whether this individual's on any of their databases, see if there's any history. There's certain techniques that they'll use and compare what they've got forensically at the moment with what they have on their databases, and that will hopefully allow them to tie down who the individual is. Of course, if the individual is a complete clean skin, hasn't been involved with the police or the FBI or anything in any way, shape or form beforehand, then that's going to make their job much more difficult. Well, I think it's too early to say whether it's a lapse in security, because a lot of the time, principals will turn around to the security detail and say, look, I'm walking 300 yards, you don't need to be there, or I don't want you there. We don't know the full detail of why he was staying there, why the security detail wasn't in, why they hadn't accompanied him. Now, if I was the head of the security, you look at things from a risk assessment perspective, and they will have probably assessed that the risk was very low indeed, but they should have insisted on someone being there to secure the route, to clear it, if he was deemed enough of a risk that he needed a security team. Why would a CEO of a healthcare company need a security detail of this unless there were other threats that had gone in the background? And again, this is something that will inform the FBI and the New York police investigation.